Nobody taught you to want this. And the last time you had a drink, beer, wine, whatever it was, you probably just had it and moved on. But what you did is one of the oldest things a human being can do. Older than writing, older than farming. It actually predates human beings entirely. Because the pull toward alcohol didn't begin with the Romans or the Egyptians or the first person who figured out how to brew something in a clay pot. It begins 10 million years ago on a forest floor in Africa with a single piece of rotting fruit. In 2014, a biologist named Robert Dudley at UC Berkeley published a book called The Drunken Monkey. His argument starts with something simple. Fruit falls from trees. When it hits the ground and sits there, the natural sugars inside begin breaking down. Yeast finds it, fermentation starts, and the fruit begins producing ethanol, the same compound in every drink you've ever had. When our ancestors ate that fruit, something happened in their brain that they had no framework to understand. It just felt different, better. So they remembered where they found it. They came back, generation after generation. The ones who sought out that feeling survived better, found more food, thrived. Evolution didn't just allow the taste for alcohol, it selected for it. By the time the first true humans walked the earth, the craving wasn't learned, it was inherited, wired in, already there. So the real question isn't why humans drink. The question is, how long ago did we figure out we could make it ourselves? In 2018, a team of archaeologists were excavating a limestone cave called Raqefet near the coast of modern-day Israel. Inside, carved directly into the bedrock, were stone mortars, bowls ground into the cave floor itself. They scraped the residue from inside those mortars and ran it through chemical analysis. What they found was wheat and barley, soaked, germinated, fermented, deliberately processed, step by step. That's a brewery, 13,000 years old, inside a cave. Here's the part that changes everything. The people who made this, a group called the Natufians, were not farmers. They had no fields, no domesticated crops. They gathered wild grain by hand and hunted for meat. They didn't cultivate the barley. They found it growing wild and carried it back. And the first thing they figured out how to do with it wasn't bread. It was beer. Before this discovery, the accepted story of human civilization followed a clean, logical sequence. Humans settle, humans farm, humans build, and somewhere near the end of that list, humans drink. Raqefet Cave doesn't just challenge that story, it dismantles it completely. These people were producing alcohol while still living as nomads, no permanent address, no fixed home. And they weren't alone. Roughly 1,000 years later, something was happening further north. In southeastern Turkey, someone was organizing an operation that should have been impossible. A site we now call Göbekli Tepe. Massive stone pillars, some over 20 feet tall, some weighing more than 10 tons, arranged in deliberate circles, covered in carved reliefs of animals. The precision is undeniable. The scale is staggering. And it predates farming. It predates pottery. It predates every permanent settlement in the entire region. The people who built this were hunter-gatherers. No wheels, no metal tools, no cities. For decades, archaeologists stared at this site and asked the same question. What could possibly motivate nomadic people? People with no surplus food, no central authority, no infrastructure, to coordinate the movement of 10-ton stones up a hill. The answer came from stone vats found at the site. Chemical residue inside them confirmed fermented grain, beer, produced in large quantities. Göbekli Tepe wasn't a settlement. It wasn't a fort or a palace. It was a venue, built specifically to bring people together around food, ritual, and alcohol. People crossed entire regions on foot to get there. They gathered, they feasted, they drank. Which forces a question that archaeologists have been arguing about for 50 years. Why did humans start farming? The standard answer is survival. You farm because farming feeds more people more reliably. But a researcher named Patrick McGovern, the world's leading authority on ancient fermented beverages, has spent his career building a different case. His argument is that the first thing humans wanted to produce at scale wasn't food, it was alcohol. Bread is hard. You grind grain. You knead dough. You manage fire and timing. Beer is almost automatic. Soak grain, add water, wait. Fermentation is not a human invention. It's a natural process. Humans just learned to aim it. And the desire to drink reliably, not just when you stumbled across rotting fruit, but whenever you wanted, may have been a stronger motivator to settle, to plant, to stay in one place, than the need for a steady grain supply ever was. The evidence from China adds another layer. At a 9,000-year-old site called Jiahu in central China, archaeologists found pottery jars with residue inside. Chemical analysis identified rice, honey, grapes, and hawthorn fruit, all fermented together. Every ingredient confirmed. The process confirmed. This is the oldest verified recipe for an alcoholic drink ever found anywhere on Earth. And it wasn't primitive experimentation. It was a deliberate, multi-ingredient formula blended with clear intention. Whoever made this wasn't discovering fermentation. They had already mastered it. Move forward to ancient Egypt, and alcohol stops being a luxury or a ritual object. It becomes infrastructure. Beer is everywhere, not as a treat, but as a foundational resource. The workers who built the pyramids received beer as wages, roughly 4 to 5 liters per person per day. Not a bonus, not a reward, their actual salary. The Nile, the river that Egypt depended on for everything, produced water that was frequently contaminated. Drinking it directly was a genuine health risk. Beer, because of what happens during fermentation, was consistently safer. In the heat of the Egyptian desert, given the choice between currency and 5 liters of something that wouldn't make you sick, the math wasn't complicated. Beyond hydration, beer carried real nutritional value: calories, vitamins, minerals. For someone spending their day moving multi-ton limestone blocks under a direct sun, beer wasn't a drink, it was a meal. The role of alcohol in Egypt extended beyond labor and survival. Egyptian theology held that beer was created by the god Osiris and given to humanity as a divine gift. It appeared in temple offerings, in burial chambers, in medical texts. Physicians prescribed herb-infused beer for conditions ranging from digestive illness to infected wounds. A single cup of beer in ancient Egypt was simultaneously a wage, a water source, a meal, a medicine, and an offering to the gods. So step back and look at the full arc. 10 million years ago, the craving is built into your biology by evolution itself. 13,000 years ago, humans are brewing deliberately before they know how to grow a single crop. 12,000 years ago, they are moving 10-ton stones to build the first monumental structure in human history, specifically to gather and drink. 9,000 years ago, they have refined multi-ingredient recipes. 5,000 years ago, alcohol is the economic and spiritual backbone of the most advanced civilization on Earth. The version of history where alcohol is a byproduct of civilization, something that emerged once humans had already figured everything else out, doesn't hold up anymore. The evidence points in a different direction entirely. The cups changed, the ingredients changed, the scale changed. But the drive behind all of it, the thing that started with a primate reaching for a piece of fruit it had no name for, has never changed once. Everything we know about this is linked in the description below. If this is the kind of story you want more of, subscribe to the channel. We'll see you in the next one.